Reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery. Download it now. Tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Wants to go for a walk outside the house with a friend? Introducing iCapital, where you can get investment advice on the go. It is accessible via app and website. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. iCapital is reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery. Download it now. Tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Wants to go for a walk outside the house with a friend? Introducing iCapital, where you can get investment advice on the go. It is accessible via app and website. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. iCapital is reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery. Download it now. Tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Wants to go for a walk outside the house with a friend? Introducing iCapital, where you can get investment advice on the go. It is accessible via app and website. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. iCapital is reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery. Download it now. Tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Wants to go for a walk outside the house with a friend? Introducing iCapital, where you can get investment advice on the go. It is accessible via app and website. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. iCapital is reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery. Download it now. Tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Wants to go for a walk outside the house with a friend? Introducing iCapital, where you can get investment advice on the go. It is accessible via app and website. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. iCapital is reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery. Download it now. Tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Wants to go for a walk outside the house with a friend? Introducing iCapital, where you can get investment advice on the go. It is accessible via app and website. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. iCapital is reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery. Download it now. Tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Wants to go for a walk outside the house with a friend? Introducing iCapital, where you can get investment advice on the go. It is accessible via app and website. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. iCapital is reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery. Download it now. Tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Wants to go for a walk outside the house with a friend? Introducing iCapital, where you can get investment advice on the go. It is accessible via app and website. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. iCapital is reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery. Download it now. Tired of doing investment research on stock markets? Wants to go for a walk outside the house with a friend? Introducing iCapital, where you can get investment advice on the go. It is accessible via app and website. Subscribe now to iCapital for stock news. iCapital is reliable because they thoroughly research listed companies, economies, and stock markets. iCapital provides a clear perspective of how markets interact and how it influences your investment. When investors and traders are debating whether to buy or sell their stocks, fret not, as iCapital will recommend Malaysian and global stocks. iCapital is available on Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and Huawei App Gallery. Download it now.
Good morning everyone. Good to see you all again. Today's live session will be revisiting a topic that we discussed a few months ago, on why I've not left Malaysia, why I've not moved to another country like so many other Malaysians have done. This is part 2, and I think if you look at some of the statements that some of the hopeless Malaysian politicians have been making recently, right? Like that useless fellow who keep asking the Indians and the Chinese in Malaysia to follow what has been done in Indonesia. You know that idiot, the 98-year-old idiot. I don't know why the media keeps reporting the nonsense that he talks about. So that kind of statements, that kind of comments that have been made. So I thought maybe it's a good time to relook at, not just in my case, but using myself as a typical example of why Malaysians should move from Malaysia, why Malaysians should not move from Malaysia. So this will be part 2. And before that, I hope you will share, like whatever we're doing, and more importantly, share our session, because we discuss topics that are not just purely about economics or investment. Making the country better, making Malaysia better, cannot just be about investment and economics, although that is our area of expertise. So we want to reach out to other fellow Malaysians. Here I am, not speaking as a fund manager, I'm not speaking as an investment analyst, I'm speaking as a Malaysian, right? And I think our aim, our objective is to be able to have healthy discussions, healthy debates based on rational analysis, based on facts. Facts are very important, because without facts, it's very hard to distinguish what is true and what is not true, what is propaganda and what is not propaganda. So we hope that you all will share our sessions so that more Malaysians can take part in our live session. So this topic, I think, we don't have a general election. We shouldn't be having a general election anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that the issues underlying the underlying reasons why people stay back in Malaysia, why people move out of Malaysia, the issues will always be there. And it is important that we understand them so that when the next general election or the next by-election is called, then we can at least look at some of the announcements, some of the statements made by whichever politician. At least we can judge them in a objective manner, right? We should be able to decide what is rubbish and what is not rubbish, and which politician should we listen to and which politician should we just forget about them altogether. So I want to revisit because after that live session, we had quite a number of comments. I think in total we have about 100 plus comments, right? And in some of the comments, I think there was a few misunderstanding that I would like to first clarify before I move on to part 2. I think the first one is I did not make a mistake. I know what I was talking about. I know what I'm talking about. Now, Singapore is a high-income country that no one has any disagreement with. But most people, I would say 99% of the ordinary folks would think that Singapore is a developed country. So this is where, like I said, it's important to get the facts. Right? What do the facts say? The facts, now this is not according to me, right? My facts are different. The facts will be based on WTO. WTO is the World Trade Organization, right? Under WTO, Singapore declares herself as a developing country. Singapore, not me, not Tan Teng Boo, right? Now, under WTO, there is no official WTO definition of what is a developing countries. Members of WTO will announce for themselves whether they are developed or developing countries, right? And of course, that doesn't mean that everybody has to accept it. Other members can challenge it, right? But Singapore declares herself as developing country under WTO because there are certain advantages of a developing country status. So Singapore doesn't want to lose some of these advantages. Now, it's not just in the case of WTO. If you look at the Statistics Department, the Singapore Department of Statistics, under the Sustainable Development Goals, goal number 17, right? You can go to the website is www.singstat.gov.sg, and then you look for Sustainable Development Goals, goal number 7, target 1716, right? Which talks about global partnership for sustainable development. This target, this is an official Singapore government website, right? This target 1716, the Singapore government declares it as not applicable. not applicable to Singapore. Why? Because it says in the statistics department website that Singapore is a developing country. So for those of you who say that Tan Teng Boo made a mistake, I did not make a mistake. I know my facts. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So please make sure before you present your facts, make sure that they are real facts. For example, whether Singapore is a developing country or developed country. Singapore is not. It's not a simple case. Yeah, it's high income. It's super high income. It's one of the richest country in the world, but it's a developing country. So be careful. Malaysia is simple. Malaysia is middle income and developing country. Nobody questions that. It's very easy. We can't. Malaysia, in no matter how, in whatever ways you want to try and juggle the facts, Malaysia is definitely not a high-income country. Malaysia is definitely not a developed country by whatever definition, right? And in Malaysia, under WTO declares itself as a developing country, I think no member would challenge that. Okay, that's the first thing that I need to make sure that we understand each other. Point number 2 from the part 1 is that from some of the comments, I mean, I appreciate all the comments that y'all gave. I appreciate the trouble that y'all took to give your comments. Whether I agree, whether I disagree, and so on, that's beside the point. The point is to have participation. The point is to have a lively discussion, right? And so that we can help and enlighten each other. The second point is that it's easy for me to say, I'm 69 years old. I'm like, from some comments, like as if I'm super rich and those kind of things, that therefore I don't have to worry about the problems of not migrating from Malaysia. Now, superficially, you may say that, yeah, I'm not like a wage earner. That's correct. I'm definitely not in that super rich class, like some of the driving the Bentley, the billionaires and all this. I'm definitely above the average income earner in Malaysia, right? But how did I get there? And what has that got to do with the fact that I did not move out, I did not leave Malaysia, I did not migrate from Malaysia? Now, if you go back to the 1980s, I'm born in 1954, so in the mid-80s is about when I started Capital Dynamics. It was 1988. I was 34 years old, right? And at that time, I was desperate for a job. I couldn't get a job. I'm not sure whether you all believe me. In the 80s, I actually applied for a job in Singapore Airlines as a management trainee. And I failed. I went to the first round of interview with Singapore Airlines and I couldn't go to the second round. I applied for many jobs. I even applied for a bank in Malaysia as a banking training officer, and I got rejected. And then I decided to start Capital Dynamics in Sdn Bhd in 1988. Then I used that company to apply for an investment advisor license. The requirement at that time was, the government requirement was that to have an investment advisor license, I need a minimum paid-up capital of 200,000 ringgit. And for those of you who think that now I can say things so easily because I'm rich and so on and so forth, don't forget, the time I was 34 and I was already having a family and I couldn't get a job, and I started Capital Dynamics Sdn Bhd, CDSB for short, with only 48,000 ringgit. That's all that I have. I can even show you my bank statement. I don't have a cent more than 48,000 ringgit. And the minimum requirement for the investment advisor license was 200,000. How on earth am I going to meet the minimum requirement? First thing. Second thing is, there were, at that time in the 80s, in the late 80s, there were about maybe 11, 12 licensed investment advisor. All of them, all the investment advisors are all institutions. One of them was part of Aminvest. One was part of C Corp Schroeder. C Corp Schroeder was a big financial institution in the 80s. And one would belong to the Johor SEDC, Johor State Economic Development Corporation. There's not a single investment advisor that is independently owned. That's point number 2. So when I applied for the investment advisor license, I was going against all odds. I had every reason from an economic point of view, from a financial point of view. At that time in 88, 89, my son was already 6, 7 years old, and I couldn't get a job. I had every reason to migrate from Malaysia. I tried to get, a few years before that, I tried to get a license in Malaysia. At the time, the license was 30%. 30% of my shareholders must be Bumiputra. And then as I prepared to apply for the license, which took me about 1.5, 2 years, the government changed the policy. For the same license, if I want to operate in, say, Penang or KL, I must have at least 70% Bumiputra shareholder, from 30% to 70%. This was in the mid-80s. And then moving forward, I couldn't get a job. To apply for investment advisor license, I need 200,000. I got only 48,000. Not a single one was independently owned by an individual. Wouldn't that be all the reasons for me to migrate? This is if you put yourself in my shoes, this is a hopeless country, They just don't give you the opportunity. They don't just give you the chance. I didn't. I refused to. As I explained in part 1, to my ex-wife, my wife at that time, I said, no, I don't want to leave Malaysia. I don't want to migrate from Malaysia because I think that the grass is not greener on the other side. And I stayed, and I fought. I fought very hard to be Malaysia's first independent investment advisor. First thing is, how do I meet the 200,000 requirement with only 48,000? That's where you got to be committed, determined, and creative. In my case, I'm telling you the full facts of how I got the 200,000 met. I've always enjoyed doing research. I've always collected. I've got my small library of investment books, library of annual reports. Those are the days when you don't have internet. The only source of financial information about companies from their annual report. So I would take the trouble. These are the days when you have to type out a letter, right? No word processing, nothing, no computer. I would type out a letter to write to all the listed companies and request for the annual reports. And to be fair to them, they all send it to me. So I collect all those. So what I did is I did a valuation of all the investment data, all the annual reports that I have, and then let Capital Dynamics issue shares in exchange for these assets. So I got 200,000. Now, after what I did, the government revised the law. The government changed the law to, when you meet the 200,000, you must issue it for cash. It cannot be done the way I did. So anyway, I got through. That is only the financial requirement. How do I get the other part of it? The institutions got their investment advisory license within 1, 2, 3 months because they're tanseries, they're part of the big banks and so on and so on. They got it very fast. It took mine 13 to 14 months to get it. And not just that, I had to go for an hour oral interview with 5 government officials. 5. 1 hour. And what happened in the interview? That time there's no Capital Market Services Act. That time was the Securities Industry Act, SIA. So the 5 officers would have in front of them hard copies of the Securities Industry Act. And then they would ask me questions based on that. And I'm not allowed to have a copy in front of me. Okay, Mr. Tan, when you have interest in securities under the Securities Industry Act, how many days do you have before you have to disclose your interest? And I have to answer them correctly. All the answers that they gave me in the 89 interview, I answered 100% correct. All of them, I got it correctly. How did I do that? No, I didn't go for any kind of Tan Sri to help me because they don't even know what questions they're going to ask. I did not bribe even a single cent. It was zero corruption. So you want to believe in our country, you want to believe in our fellow Malaysians. That's what I did. I believe in them. And I answered all the questions correctly. And at the end of it, there was no reason why they shouldn't give me the license because I qualified in every aspect of it. So if you want a case where Malaysia works, when Malaysia believes in meritocracy, Capital Dynamics Sdn Bhd got its investment advisory license as an independent company through 100% meritocracy. No pulling of strings because I do not know any Tan Sri. No corruption. I don't believe in that. Zero. How did I get 100% answers correct? You know how hard I work. I memorized the entire securities industry, the whole act from cover to cover. How did I memorize the securities industry? You know what I do is, at that time, like I said, I was pretty poor. I drive only a 1.3 Mazda 323, which has got rusty roof and the roof was leaking. That's the only car that I have. So every time I sit in the car, for example, what I did is I make notes in there's a card, which is like a few inches wide. So I'll write the notes on those cards. And in the dashboard of my Mazda 323, I'll place all the cards there, which are summarized of securities industry. Section 1 is what? Section 2, interpretation. Section 3 is what? So every time, do you know how often you have to stop at traffic lights? If I were to drive from, say, PJ to Sultan Ismail or Raja Chulan, do you know how many traffic lights you have to pass? And do you know how long each traffic light takes? So I calculated those. And each time the car stops at a traffic light, I'll take out my card, my notes, and read and memorize them. So in one day, I actually was able to memorize a lot of them just by reading them when the traffic lights are red. And I did that for about 12 months. And when they finally called me for an interview, after about 12 months, they said, okay, Mr. Tan, we'd like to interview you for 1 hour. I had chicken pox just when I was going to be called for interview. And the lady refused to postpone the interview. I told the lady very honestly, Juan, whatever your name is, I can go for the interview with my chicken pox, but if all the officers get chicken pox, please don't blame me. So in the end, they agreed to postpone the interview for 2 weeks when I recovered from the chicken pox. So what I'm trying to say is, you're looking at me now, which is about what, 34 years, 35 years later, right? The hard work that I put in for the first 4 years when Capital Dynamics in Sdn Bhd was set up, we make losses every year. Every year we're losing money. Every month I was worried as to for the next month, how am I going to pay my rental? How am I going to pay the salary to my staff? Because there was no cash coming in, there's no cash flow coming in. And guess what? We launched our iCapital newsletter in September 1989. By August 1990, that's about 10 months later, the first Gulf War broke out. Markets crashed, oil price shot up. Everybody was so scared. And I had to struggle for 4 years before I can see the red ink of CDSB turn to black. So I had every reason to migrate. I had more reasons than other of my relatives, of my friends who migrated, right, whether to Australia or New Zealand. I had more reasons than them, but I chose not to. It was an intentional decision and stayed back and believe in the country. I got the first independent investment advisory license, right, through 100% merit. What do you say about that? I think this is a wonderful country. If you prepare, I mean, look, when the traffic officer gives you a traffic summon, are you the type that says, yeah, okay lah, you know, RM50, let's selesai it? Or are you the type that says, no, I'm prepared to pay the compound fine because I really parked on yellow lines, I really drove through when the lights were red? If you're the type who says that, well, okay lah, 50 ringgit, nothing, it's just a small bribe, then of course you get a country that you don't believe in. But if you think that every single individual can make a positive difference to the country, then you stay back. You stay back and make sure that the country becomes better. Is Malaysia in 2023 better than Malaysia in the 80s? In some ways, no. In many ways, yes. All right. So this is where I come to part 2. Right now, you can see the article that was written in March, that was published in March 2023, where the Human Resource Minister Siva Kuman said that by 2022, 1.86 Malaysians have left Malaysia. 1.86 Malaysians have migrated. And in terms of percentage, out of a population of 33 million, 5.6 Malaysians have migrated, which is higher than the world's average of 3.6%. That's 1.86 million is a lot. I mean, like what the minister says, this is 5.6 out of Malaysia's 33 million people. All right, that's a lot. Now, the thing is, if, you know, recently I met 2 Malaysian, one, both a healthcare officer, one a nurse, one a specialist doctor, and both of them could have migrated, but they chose to stay back. One is about 60 plus years old, one is 40 plus years old. So my point is this 1.86 million people, and then if you include the children, let's say each one has got 1 or 2 children, so you add in another maybe 2 to 3 million people, right? So in total, you're talking about, if this 1.8 million people had not migrated, you have additional 3 to 4 Malaysians at home. That would have totally altered our election results. The election results, and you know, 1.86 million, out of that, about 1.1, 1.2 million went to Singapore. So you guess, you know, racially, they are mainly Chinese. And that would have a huge impact on the election that we're having. The results would be very different. Right? And who knows, the political landscape will be very different. So whether people migrate or not, it matters not only to the person who migrated, but it matters to the people who stayed back. And in this case, if you add in the children that they have, 3 to 4 million Malaysians, I think we cannot underestimate the impact that would have on the Malaysia political landscape now. Another point which most Malaysians either have forgotten or are not aware of, Chinese, for example, makes up about 23% of Malaysia's current population, about 23%. I think most people do not know that once upon a time, which is not that long ago, in the 60s and the 70s, Chinese, not counting Indians, just Chinese alone, make up about 33 to 35% of Malaysia's population. That is a lot. That's more than 1/3. And in states like Sarawak, right, the Chinese is a very big portion of the Sarawak community. They form about 1/3 of the population there. So the question is, in those years, with such a high percentage, why is it that we see no hope in Malaysia? And then you migrate to a country where racially you maybe only like 0.1% of the total population. Some of the commentators, obviously these are people who have migrated to Australia, say that, you know, maybe that I'm not aware I should be proud that Penny Wong is the foreign minister in Australia, and that maybe I'm not aware of that she's from Sabah. Of course, I'm aware. I know who Penny Wong is, and a few other Malaysians have made it in the Australian political scene, in New Zealand, in US, and so on. But if you can be proud of one Malaysian who is a foreign minister in Australia now, why aren't you proud of the fact that in the 70s, in the 60s, the finance ministry was headed by a Chinese? The industry minister was headed by Tan Lim Swee An, a Chinese. There were so many Chinese ministers in the Malaysian government in the 60s. Why aren't you proud of that? And we lost that. We, meaning the Malaysian Chinese, lost all that. And maybe if you look at in terms of the importance of the portfolio, the most important Chinese minister in the government now is maybe Ministry of Transport, right? But not too long ago, 50 years ago, finance minister was Chinese, the health minister was Chinese, Lee Seok Yew, Lim Swee An was the trade and industry minister who actually initiated the early industrialization process of Malaysia. So we had, in the cabinet, we have at least 3 to 4 very important ministries, and we were not proud. Why? And then we are proud of one Penny Wong, who is Australian foreign minister after so many decades. And if the 1/3 statistics had stayed the same, had stayed constant, of course, the percentage has dropped not just because of migration. The percentage has dropped because the Chinese and the Indian communities have gotten, the families have become smaller and smaller. They're having fewer and fewer children. Whereas on the Malay community side, they still have 3, 4, 5 children. So that has helped in the drop in percentage, right? But if with 33%, 35%, and now 23%, which is still very substantial, if you cannot fight for your rights in that country that you are staying in, how can you have your rights protected in another country where you're a tiny, tiny minority? You see, if you look at America, United States of America, why is it that the Native Americans, the so-called, in the past we used to call them the Red Indians, from Hollywood movie, the Cherokee tribe, right, the Navajo and all those things. Why is it that they are the natives of America? Why is it that they are in such a deplorable state? Why is it that the whole US government has totally ignored them? And alcoholism is very high among the Native Americans, drug addiction, and they got no high-income jobs. Their Indian reservations are in a very backward situation. Why? But you look at the Black Americans, right, which in the past you call Negroes and whatever it is, they form about 10 to 12% of US population. Why is it that compared with the Native Americans, why is it that the Black Americans have progressed a lot more? Right? You can have congressmen, you can have high-level politicians coming from that community because the Black Americans are a lot more united. They are very united in fighting for their rights. They were brought in as slaves, basically from Africa, mainly as slaves, right? They were bullied, they were humiliated, they were exploited for 2.5, 3 centuries, 4 centuries, especially in the cotton fields. But they chose to stay on. They stayed on to fight for their rights, and they were united. People like Martin Luther King, right, or Malcolm X, these are their leaders in the 60s and 70s who united the entire community and fought for their rights. And yeah, inch by inch. Of course, the blacks in America are still below the whites in America. But compared with what they were in the 20th century, in the 19th century, they have improved. The difference, the point I want to put across is that in the case of the Cherokees, the Sioux, the Navajo, the Native Americans, because they're totally disunited. In the case of the Black Americans, they united as one community and they fought for their rights. So the same thing for the communities, whether Indian, Chinese, Malay communities, same thing here. We have to stay united and make sure that the country as a whole progresses. So the thing that I would like to, just also update on what I said in part one, where recently Australia had a national referendum to recognize the Aborigines, right? The Aborigines are the original people in Australia. So they conducted a referendum to see whether the Aboriginal people in Australia would be recognized in the Australian Constitution and establish an advisory group to discuss relevant issues in Australia's parliament. The national referendum was defeated by a big majority of 60%. 60% of Australians say no to this referendum. And if you look back at the history of the Aborigines, they call the stolen generations, where a lot of the Aboriginal Australian children were forced away from their home to go into, to use a nice terms, to get re-educated, to use another term, they were actually called the stolen generations because they were removed from their parents to be converted into proper Australian citizens. Now, it's not just Australia. Australia has moved, to be fair, Australia has moved a lot along those lines in recognizing the Aborigines, right? They wanted to have the right to be able to say that I want to have the referendum. That in itself is a major achievement. But even before that, in 2008, Kevin Rudd, the former Australian Prime Minister, had already issued a national apology for Australia's actions in that stolen generations era. But then if you look at other countries, the Anglo-Saxon countries, the United States, Canada, right, and America, they still, Native American children also have the same treatment, where they were forced to go to boarding schools, forced by the US government and separated from their families. And in the boarding school, they were raped, they were brutally treated, and whatever crimes you can think of. The same thing in Canada. It's as bad as in US, and up to now, America and Canada have not recognized all this. It has been described as a cultural genocide. What Canada, Australia, and US, and also New Zealand did to their own natives by sending the children, forcing the children to stay in these residential schools where they were brutalized, is accurately described as cultural genocide. So countries like so-called civilized democracy like Canada and US have not made reparation, have not apologized, have not done to restore the wrongs that were done. And you're talking about a genocide that lasted for a long time. I think you may complain that in case of Malaysia, we have policies like the new economic policy, which is wrongly implemented by many of the government officers. You may say that that's discriminatory and so on, that it can be a form of cultural bullying and so on. But I think it's nothing compared with this cultural genocide that was saw in those other countries. And in the case of Malaysia, at least we have lively debates whether your views are fully published or whether it's fully debated in the parliament. At least we Malaysians whatever the community, we talk about it, whether we should move on from the NEP, whether we should change NEP, whether we should move to meritocracy and so on and so forth. Although all this is still work in progress, it's all openly discussed. I think that is something that is an asset of this country, and I think it is up to the Chinese and the Indian communities, especially their political leaders and their supporters, to be able to debate these issues in a non-racial manner, in a non-sensationalized manner, in a matured, responsible, socially responsible manner. And I think if the Indian, the Chinese communities can discuss this together with the Malay and the other Bumiputera communities, I think progress can be made. Because you can be sure that there are a lot of people in the Malay and the Bumiputera communities who do not believe in their own politicians, who believe that a lot of Malaysian Chinese, a lot of Malaysian Indians are loyal citizens, are people who have contributed a lot to the development of this country, and therefore they should be equally treated. So we should be able to voice this, discuss this openly, so that some positive actions can be taken. And if you combine the Indians and the Chinese, we form about a third of Malaysia's population. One third is not small. So there's still hope, and I think we should take advantage of this situation that we still can make positive changes, which is where I come to our 2023 Investor Day. Right, I'm not sure how many of you attended. This was held in Sunday in KLCC, 5th November. And part of this Investor Day, we have an iCapital talent show, which was at 8 o'clock at night, Sunday night in KLCC. This is the event where it was sponsored and organized by Capital Dynamics and iCapital.biz Berhad. It's a talent show open to only university students. Right, from any university in Malaysia, public, private, doesn't matter. So you can showcase any talent, singing, dancing, violin playing, piano playing, whatever it is. And there were 18 finalists on that night. Next. So ICAP and Capital Dynamics are one of the co-sponsors. The closed-end fund, iCapital.biz Berhad, sponsored this. And what I want to show you is, what I want to share with you is, before the finals were held on Sunday night, all of us were having low expectations. All said, okay, it's going to be just another boring talent show. You know, what do you expect from university students? And we were more or less by 8 o'clock, because we had the Investor Day on Sunday. We were very tired. Most of us were kind of getting ready to fall asleep during the talent show. But I think this is where I want to share with you about how I link this with whether you should migrate from Malaysia or not. Maybe I'll just share with you the first few minutes of the finalists. I'll group them into two. There are quite a number who showcase their dancing talents. Can we take a look at the video? Can we have the sound? Do we have the sound?
Do I have your attention? 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 Do I have
what gangsters do? I'm fucked up, I'm black and blue. I'm built for all the abuse. I got secrets that nobody knows. I'm good on that pussy shit. 为何深暗叫人扑空？为何爱我，所以我牢笼？为何 受。越珍贵越浪费，致命的伤诞生于亲密，越追问。I belong, I can't take it anymore. I was painting a picture. The picture was a painting of you, and for a moment I thought you were happy, but then again it wasn't true. And all this time I haven't.
Lucky girl, she got married to a boy like you. She'd kick you out if she ever knew about all the you tell me that you do.
Okay, hi. That is just to show 5 minutes, 5 minutes of the dancing finalists. Right, you can see it ranges from traditional Indonesian Java dance to to traditional ballet, contemporary street dance, to K-pop, to traditional Chinese dance, and so on. So the variety is huge, and these are all full-time students, first year, second year students. Can we listen to the other? Can we look at the other performers?
And I don't wanna say it, but I'm out of control. And I'm ready to face it, baby, once and for all. I'm so tired of running, I'm sick of letting you down. It's been a lonely road and it's all over now. goes. Can't count the years on hand that we've been together. I need the other one to hold you, make you feel better. It's not a walk in the park to love each other, but when I think us interlock, can't deny you're worth it. And after all this time, I'm still into you. I should be over all the butterflies. I'm into you. Baby, even on the worst night.
Count my blessings up to the rising sun and run, run, run. Yeah, one day will the sky might fall. Yeah, one day I could lose it all. So I run until I hit that wall. If I learn one lesson, count your blessings up to the rising sun and run, run, run. Run, run, run. Yeah, run, run, run. Yeah, I learned my lesson, count my blessings up to the rising sun. Yeah, I learned my lesson, count my blessings up to the rising sun. Yeah, if I learn one lesson, count your blessings up to the rising sun.
It's the sunrise and those brown eyes. You're the one that I desire. When we wake up and then we make love, it makes me feel so nice. Oh, oh, oh. You're my water when I'm stuck in the desert. You're the Tylenol I take when my head hurts. You're the one that I desire. Oh, I just wanna see.
这剧也表演太多了，朋友都劝我要换一换，不要太冲了，应该要注重，该要注重。说的是学业，包括 assignment。再说，展示太多的分数，会心思之后的每一次发挥，拜托。我每一次表演歌都不一样，你有没有发现？没有就刷刷我之前表演的视频，被价值狗废，都在我 highlight shout out to those who capture 我每一步走位，也特别记得 one day， 不知谁有我这个 rap， 没有对比就没有伤害，这就是现场的反馈。你那咬字清晰，让观众们都惊魂未定。当我说了几句关键词，你们都非常的配合给予回应。当他一开口，那突然安静的空气，都开始怀疑自己的耳朵，不知道到底在说什么东西。我
All the shine of 1,000 spotlights, all the stars we steal from the night sky will never be enough, never be enough. Towers of gold are still too little. These hands could hold the world, but it'll never be enough, never be enough.
Okay, right. So you saw dancing and non-dancing. I'm not sure if the quality on your side is good enough, but I can safely say, and with 100% certainty, that if you are present on that Sunday night in KLCC, you will be totally amazed by the level of professionalism, the level of the quality of their performance from all the 18 finalists. We had 3 professional judges. all the three professional judges, when I spoke to them, they said they were all taken by surprise by the high quality of all the finalists. The same thing on our side, all of us were taken aback with positive surprises. You know, like I said, we were expecting that by 8, 9 o'clock, we would probably have fallen asleep. The event ended about 12, about midnight. We were all still wide awake, and we were so inspired and excited by whatever we saw. You know, you can see the diversity of talents, the dancing, and then the non-dancing part, the rapper, the person who rap in Chinese. We got quite a number of our staff from mainland China who came to our investor day. All of them said that this Malaysian Chinese who rap, the quality was so much better because he did not do a rapping. What he did is a remix. He did remix the whole song on his own, and the quality was even much better than what they can find in China. And then you could see Harvard Sanda, one of the winners. He is from, I think, Sarawak, right? If you can listen to him on that night, he's like Malaysia's Bruno Mars. And then the Pascaleta, she's from Sabah, right? Her voice was incredible. So the talents that we have on that night across the 18 finalists was so, the variety was so great, the quality was so deep, and the person who sang at the beginning was maybe, if Harvard was like Bruno Mars, maybe the guy at the beginning who sang solo was maybe like Stan Smith, you know. So, and then the group from the dancing group, Seven is like our Blackpink, or even better than Blackpink. So we have so much talent, and these people are 20 years old, 21 years old, full-time students, haven't graduated, and doing this on a part-time basis. So why I'm inspired by them. I have so much faith and so much hope in the Malaysia of the future. People like us, 70, 69, we are of the past. But this bunch of university students are the future. So why can you find any other country, anywhere in the world, where there are first year, second year, third year students? Would you be able to find a bunch of students who are able to perform traditional dancing, ballet, traditional Chinese, contemporary Western, K-pop, and able to sing all kinds of songs in all kinds of languages? There's no country in the world that has got this breadth and depth of talent except Malaysia. And this is the asset that's staring right in front of us. So those who have migrated, who have left Malaysia, if you don't want to return, fine, you can stay wherever you are. I think my advice, my recommendation, my sincere recommendation to our politicians, I hope our politicians listen to this. If they're not listening to this, can you all please share our video with your adun or your member of parliament? Because what Malaysia should do, what the government should do is, why don't we believe and invest in the 34 million Malaysians who have stayed behind? Why don't we invest and believe in this, for example, the 18 finalists, so that they don't have to migrate, so that they can see Malaysia is not just their present home, but is the home of their future. I share this video because, the iCapital Talent Show, because there is not a single person on that night who was not impressed by their performance. I'm not sure how good the quality is in your YouTube, in your Facebook, but next year when this is the first time that Capital Dynamics and iCapital have organized this talent show. All of us unanimously agreed that we must have a 2024 iCapital Talent Show on a larger scale, on an even more successful scale And we hope that more of you, and look, for you to attend, you don't even have to, if you go to play concert, you have to pay like how many thousand ringgit, right? If you go to Eric Chow or Jay Chow, you have to pay like how many thousand ringgit, right? Just to watch them, right? Here you have huge variety of talents and you don't even have to pay anything. And they are your fellow Malaysians. On that night, on the 5th November, Sunday night, one of the mothers, a mother of one of the participants, she's about 40-ish, came on her own initiative to thank me 3 times profusely. Mr. Tan, I want to thank Capital Dynamics for organizing such an event, for allowing the young Malaysians like my daughter to be able to showcase their talents. This is where the future is. Malaysia is where the future is. And you saw in the 18 finalists. So next year, please remember, come and see it for yourself, because seeing is believing, right? So with that, maybe I'll just quickly go through some of the comments that we received. Private investor says, Mr. Tan, you're definitely not super rich, but you're well off. Well, let's see, never mind. We'll talk about that separately. Wai Chun, did I ever think of taking a loan from my parents to tide over the first 4 years? I'm not that type of person I have a bit of pride in the sense that they could see my parents, my ex-wife, my siblings, my brother, my sisters, all they could see how much I was struggling. And every day I work up to about 10, 11 p.m. at night, every day, including Saturday. And that's how I got my sinus problem. They could see how much I was really struggling. None of them offered a cent of financial assistance, none of them. And I have to say, for that first 4 years, I have to thank 2 of my staff at that time, right? One was a quantitative analyst. The other one is an econs analyst, right? The quant her name is Chiu Lei Kian. The econs is Ng Chun Peng. They worked with me in that 3-4 years. In that 3-4 years, they did not receive a single cent of pay increase. They did not receive a single cent of bonus because we couldn't afford. And they worked as hard as me, if not even harder than me. So to these 2 ex-staff of mine, I'm really very thankful, because without them, our expenses would have exploded. And they really helped to make sure that in that 3-4 years of losses, we could still continue without closing down. Jeffrey Yee says, it was a brilliant day, the investor day. He attended it. David England asked a question which is out of context, but I'll answer him. He says he noticed our bullish views on the Malaysian stock market. Based on your technical analysis, many stocks, particularly the blue chips, are showing bearish trends. Could I provide more insight? I think he's really gotten his own answer. He has answered himself. The bearish trends are based on technical analysis. The bullish views on the Malaysian stock market are based on longer term fundamentals. And then Jeffrey Yee says, wonderful performance by the students, well done, and bravo. So we hope that you please share this live session, because it is not about you, it's not about us here, it's about the future of Malaysia. And you can see the students. And what I show you is only 4-5 minutes. The whole event lasted for about 2-3 hours. And we were not able to show you the performance of our MC of the night, Siti Aisyah. Siti Aisyah is only a 2nd-year student. She was a brilliant MC. She speaks Bahasa Malaysia fluently. She speaks English fluently. She speaks Mandarin fluently. 2nd-year student, top-notch MC. So the talents were really, I'm lost for words. So with that, please share and invite as many people as you possibly can to watch and see what the future of Malaysia is. it will be as bright, as positive as the effort, as the commitment that we are willing to put in. So with that, I thank you again for listening, and please subscribe to our newsletter, icapital.biz, www.icapital.biz. Any topics, any comments that you want us to discuss, again, send it to us and we will bring it up. So have a good weekend and take care. Bye-bye.
Tired of doing investment